Akbar spent his entire childhood learning how to fight and hunt. He had no interest in learning how to read and write. However, Akbar was the only Mughal emperor who was illiterate and still had a penchant for knowledge. Akbar was made king at the age of 13 after the death of his father. Akbar was with Bairam Khan at the time of his father's passing, and Bairam was made regent as Akbar was too young. On many occasions, Bairam led campaigns on Akbar's behalf to expand the kingdom. Hemu, the Hindu minister of an Afghan prince, Adil Shah, was waiting for a chance to defeat Akbar. Hemu attacked the kingdom of Delhi and emerged victorious, crowning himself the ruler of Delhi. In retaliation, Akbar launched a scathing attack in the Second Battle of Panipat. The two armies fought valiantly, and it seems as if the Mughals were fighting a losing battle, until an arrow hit Hemu's eye and he fainted. Hemu's men thought that he was dead and put down their weapons, accepting defeat. Akbar became king again. He won many more battles and added more regions to his kingdom, stretching from the Indo-Ganges basin to Kashmir and Afghanistan all the way down to Bengal in the east and part of Deccan in the south. Although Akbar was a young king, he was shrewd and organized. He got rid of all his ministers whom he felt were over-ambitious and were looking to covet his position. He removed restrictions on religions and allowed his people to practice the religion of their choice without having to fear for their life. In spite of being illiterate, Akbar was surrounded by scholars such as Birbal, Abul Fazl and Tansen, who were all part of the 9 gems or Navratnas. Akbar also took keen interest in religion, music, painters, poets and philosophy. He had a huge collection of books and manuscripts and was also owner of a number of artworks from across the region. His biggest accomplishment, however, lied in architecture. He built great structures like the Jama Masjid that stands tall even today. He even built a palace for his wife close to the Hawa Mahal. Akbar fathered 3 children, Jahangir, Murad and Danial. Jahangir was the only surviving son, as the other 2 died very young. Jahangir and Akbar did not share a very good relationship and were at constant loggerheads with each other. In 1605, Akbar fell very ill and died a slow death. He had managed to bring parts of East, West, North and as well as South India under his rule in his tenure. Akbar's rule is greatly noted for the wealth of learning and culture that existed in his time. He was also admired for his bravery and wisdom.
Egypt, one of the oldest and the most ancient civilizations in the history of planet Earth. It was also the most advanced civilization because of its architectural developments and the developments in agriculture and permanent settlement. The last heir of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. He was laid to rest, laden with gold, and eventually forgotten. His demise was a big event, even by the royal standards. He was the last in his family's line, and his funeral was the death of the Rattle dynasty. But the particulars of his passing away and its aftermath were: was it a murder or an assassination? Was it someone who was too close to him, or a foreign enemy with whom he had fought a battle? Who was it? What was the reason? Why did he die? What comes to your mind at first when you hear Egypt? Maybe some pyramids, some ancient mummies, and a mysterious land, right? Yes, you are absolutely right. Egypt is one of the most ancient and advanced civilizations in the history. It is the great land that gave us the basic geometric shapes and the theorems of trigonometry, due to which we have advanced our modern day sciences so much. The early Egyptians settled along the fertile Nile Valley as early as about 6000 BC, and they began to record the patterns of lunar phases and the seasons, both for agricultural and religious reasons. The pharaoh's surveyors used measurements from elbow to fingertips to measure the land and the buildings very early in the Egyptian history. A decimal numeric system was developed based on our 10 fingers. The oldest mathematical text from ancient Egypt discovered so far is the Moscow Papyrus, which dates from the Egyptian Middle Kingdom around 2000 to 1800 BC. Egypt rose as one of the world's first country-states in the 10,000 BC. Considered a support of civilization, ancient Egypt saw a portion of most punctual advancements of composing, farming, urbanization, sorted out religion, and a stable central government. Notable landmarks, for example, the Giza necropolis and its Great Sphinx, along with the Valley of the Kings, mirror this heritage and remain a huge focal point of logical and famous intrigue. Egypt maintained a strikingly unique, complex, and stable culture that influenced the latter cultures of Europe. After the Pharaonic era, Egypt itself came under the influence of Hellenism, for a time Christianity, and later Christian culture. Islam is the official religion of Egypt, and Arabic is its official language. The Egyptians were one of the world's first major civilizations to codify design elements in art. The wall painting done in the service of the pharaohs followed a rigid code of visual rules and meanings. Early Egyptian art is characterized by the absence of linear perspective, which results in a seemingly flat space. These artists tend to create images based on what they knew and not as much on what they saw. But modern day Egypt is just contrast of ancient Egypt. Modern day Egypt is officially known as the Arab Republic of Egypt. It's a cross-country nation spreading over the upper east corner of Africa and the southwest corner of Asia. By a land connect shaped by the Sinai Peninsula, Egypt is a Mediterranean nation circumscribed by the Gaza Strip, Israel towards the upper east, and the Gulf of Akbar towards the east, Sudan towards the south, and Libya towards the west. With its administrative and capital units in Cairo, Egypt is a modern nation in an ancient land. The Nile River runs like a ribbon throughout the length of the country. Modern Egypt dates back to 1922 when it gained nominal independence from the British Empire as a monarch. With over 95 million inhabitants, Egypt is one of the most populous countries in North Africa and the Arab world. The most intense individual in Old Egypt was the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was the political and religious pioneer of Egyptian individuals, holding the titles the ruler of the two lands and the esteemed priest of every temple. As the master of the two lands, the Pharaoh was the leader of the Upper and Lower Egypt. He claimed the majority of land, made laws, gathered assessment and taxes, guarded Egypt against outsiders. As the most esteemed priest of every temple, the Pharaoh spoke to the divine beings on earth. He performed customs and assembled sanctuaries to respect the divine beings. Numerous pharaohs went to war when their territory was undermined or when they needed to control remote terrains. On the off chance that the pharaoh won the fight, the vanquished individuals needed to perceive the Egyptian pharaoh as their ruler and offer him the finest and the most significant products from their property. Tutankhamun was an Egyptian pharaoh of the 18th administration and ruled from 1332 to 1323 BC. His time of the Egyptian history is known as the New Kingdom or at times the New Empire period. He has, since the disclosure of his flawless tomb, been alluded to conversionally as King Tut. His unique name, Tutankhamun, signifies the living image of Aten, while Tutankhamun signifies the living image of Amun. Given his age, the ruler likely had intense counselors, probably including General Horemheb and the Grand Vizier Ai. In his third regnal year, affected by his consultants, Tutankhamun turned around a few changes made during his dad's rule. He finished the love of god Aten and re-established the god Amun to matchless quality. The capital was moved back to Thebes. This is the point at which he changed his name to Tutankhamun. The nation was financially feeble and in disturbance following the rule of Akhenaten. Political relations with different kingdoms had been ignored, and Tutankhamun looked to re-establish them, specifically with Mitanni. Despite his efforts for improved relations, battles with Nubians and Asiatics were recorded in his mortuary temple at Thebes. As a result of these activities, the sanctuaries of divine beings and goddesses were in ruins. Their places of worship were abandoned. Their havens were non-existent and their courts were utilized as streets. The divine beings turned their backs upon this land. King Tut belonged to the 18th dynasty of Egyptian kings during the period of the New Kingdom, and he was the son of Akhenaten. When he became the king, he married his half-sister, Anik Senamun. There was a considerable intermarriage in the family of King Tut. Incest was seen as an acceptable element in the lives of Egyptian gods and goddesses, retaining the sacred bloodline. The pharaohs were seen as the living deities, so it was deemed as perfectly acceptable for them to emulate the incestuous behavior of the gods. Tut had two daughters. Both were stillborn. King Tut was tall, however physically delicate. He is the main pharaoh known to have been seated while occupied with physical exercises like archery. Since Tutankhamun's remaining parts uncovered a gap in the back of his skull, a few students of history had reasoned that the youthful lord was killed. However, ongoing tests propose that the crack occurred while the preservation was happening. CT scans done in 1995 demonstrated that the ruler had a broken left leg. While DNA from his mummy uncovered confirmation of different intestinal sickness diseases, all of which may have added to his initial passing. The 1922 discovery by Howard Carter of Tutankhamun's nearly intact tomb received worldwide press coverage. It sparked a renewed public interest in ancient Egypt, for which Tutankhamun's mask, now an Egyptian museum, remains the popular symbol. The curse of the pharaohs refers to an alleged curse believed by some to be cast upon any person who disturbs the mummy of an ancient Egyptian person, especially a pharaoh. This curse, which does not differentiate between thieves and archaeologists, allegedly can cause bad luck, illness, or death. It is reported that Carter sent a messenger on an errand to his house. On approaching his home, the messenger thought he had heard a faint, almost a human cry. Upon reaching the entrance, he saw the birdcage occupied by a cobra, the symbol of Egyptian monarchy. Carter's canary had died in its mouth, and this fueled local rumors of a curse. The first of the secretive passings was that of Lord Karnanov. He had been bitten by a mosquito. This was only a month and a half after the opening of the tomb. It is additionally accepted when the tomb was being re-evaluated in 2005. There were brutal tempests and some abnormal components in the desert. These tempests likewise made a tremendous harm to the compact CT scan machine that was made by Siemens and cost the organization a large number of dollars. The archaeologists and specialists subsequently recited the Bible all through the excavation. An assortment of sources offer distinctive purposes behind the pharaoh's passing. Principally, the most foreseen reason was being physically handicapped, and some pus wounds and a crack in the knee. While different researchers and students of history trust that King Tut's DNA comprised of a few specimens of female Anopheles mosquito alongside Plasmodium, that is a major reason for jungle fever or malaria. It is additionally trusted that the two reasons could be the reason for the passing, as the injuries and the fractures caused weakening of the immune system and malaria prompted the passing. CT scan exams completed in 2006 additionally uncovered that the skull had been harmed from the back and could likewise be one of the main reasons for death. But which of the following was true? It was later found by a progression of DNA tests and was discovered that the passing of Tutankhamun was the after effect of his marriage with his relative that had caused mental and physical awkward nature in the king's body. That brought about his end.
Turn it up,